Hello and welcome to Kirklees Armed Forces TV. I'm Dr. Milton Brown and today I'm speaking with Donald Campbell, founder and CEO of the Forgotten Generations, an organization dedicated to preserving the histories and experiences of men and women of African Caribbean descent who have served in the armed forces. Following its successful launch last year as a virtual museum and exhibition, the Forgotten Generations is now publishing Lest We Forget as a powerful new publication that highlights the stories of 7 Black RAF veterans who served with distinction, as well as 2 World War II veterans whose contributions remain deeply significant. Donald, welcome and thank you for joining us. Donald, could you start by telling us about the Lest We Forget project and how it came about, please?
Morning, good afternoon to you, Milton. Thank you for this invite to share about our recent exhibition, the Lest We Forget project. The Lest We Forget project came into my head around about the time we set up the organization, in the sense that I wanted to do a physical as well as a virtual museum to tell people about our service in the military, Army, Navy, and Air Force. However, I had to then go back to basics because it was during COVID, so the physical side of things were out. And then I thought, if I'm going to set up something like a virtual museum, I'd have to do some sort of exhibition to tell the story. So I started off by making inquiries to the Heritage Lottery. And then they told me that the project was really good, but it was a little bit too big to do the Navy, Army, and the Air Force all at once, to narrow it down to a template. So as my background is Royal Air Force, I thought I'd go to that one first because I got more knowledge and understanding of how it works, and indeed connections to veterans of the Royal Air Force more than the others. So having thought about that, I also narrowed it further down from Royal Air Force UK wide to the West Midlands. So that's how I started it, really. And once I then submitted that to the Heritage Lottery, they liked it, and they said yes.
What does the Lest We Forget represent to you, Donald, personally, professionally, and why is this book such an important contribution to British history?
Is It's like you have an idea, or you give birth even to a child, and you watch it grow. And the idea of the Lest We Forget being a exhibition, which happened in the Central Library of Birmingham, as you know, because Kirklees local TV took a great part in that, and thank you very much for that. Um, it became surreal in the sense that it grew to a point where you just have to stand back and look at it all and say, well, it's even beyond my expectation of what I expected of it. So it was so engaging to schools, universities, and the general public that it was absolutely amazing. So to actually create a further legacy apart from the website and the virtual museum, we thought we'd design a book to actually capture, all those physicalities of images, etc., etc. And of course, a book is always going to be somewhat accessible, probably it's more to some people than to others. So the combination of the book on the website and the virtual museum, etc., and indeed the actually exhibition going around the country, we've got quite a perspective on the whole exhibition. So hence the book, and then the launch of the book, which is coming up on the 28th of March, as in next week.
I'm certainly looking forward to the launch of the book because the folks I met, the veterans I met when you was developing this project and filming in Birmingham, it was so inspiring. And as a veteran myself, I must say, listening to the soldiers from the African descent community, or veterans, shall I say, from the African descent community, it just blew me away. I realized, you know, I wasn't on my own. Yeah. And that really gave a lot of healing to me and celebration. So, from the stories featured in the book, were there any moments or accounts that particularly moved or surprised you?
Definitely, and several occasions. But let's stick with the veterans for now. As you know, when you take on a project like this, it's not easy. You first of all got to find people who want to participate. And I can tell you that some people don't even know that they want to participate because they don't really know what's in your head, right? And then you have to sort of plant the seed and nurture it so it grows inside their head, and hopefully they get what you're talking about. As a for instance, there's six male and one female. And the female was like that when I first approached her and a little bit hesitant. And her name is Karen. And as you know, and during the process of setting up the whole exhibition, she started to get quite enthusiastic and volunteered to help to actually set up the exhibition itself. And one day she said to me, "Can I have a word when you've got time?" And I did that, 10 minutes, and I sat down and she said, "I can't believe I'm a part of this." I thought, nah, but I can see what's happening. My interview, even though I was very nervous, I watched it again and I can see. And now this is now taking root. And she says, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've got me forever now." You know, very powerful. And that's just one person. And of course, the others, all the guys, some of which I've known for years, but some of them um, never saw their stories being told like this at all. So this is like a tip of the iceberg, really, in the sense that there's so many of us ex-service personnel out there, Navy, Army, Air Force, and indeed the Merchant Navy, that, the forgotten generations aim to capture as many of these stories as possible. And then the people who actually came to see this, you know, still sticking with Karen as a female, amazing. The female who came to see, whether it was a young girl at school or in the cadets, when they saw Carol and looked at her story, they mobbed her. They couldn't get enough of her in the library, you know. Then, of course, the youngsters seeing other people who look like them and the things they've done, because we've all been in the Royal Air Force, but we've done different things, different trades and all of that. And when they listen to the history of what we've done and the travels and all this sort of thing, it was amazing. And of course, since then, we've got the veterans together. We actually gathered back at RAF Cosford Museum, where the exhibition is now, and we looked and watched the various people transiting through and fro and looking at our portrait and looking at us and thinking they see doubles. And then we went out for a meal afterwards to sit and chat about it.
I mean, you've touched on some of that, like what impact do you hope the book's going to have? And the launch event will have on the younger generations, particularly within the African descent communities. And I'm talking really about the current and perhaps future generations, yeah?
Yeah, the effect it's having and going to have, because the book will be presented to individuals like the veterans themselves, which I'm sure they will take it to their families and, friends and colleagues, and that will extend the legacy. Then, of course, it will be presented to individuals like Kirklees Local TV and all the team members that did such wonderful work to make this exhibition so successful. And of course, the schools who visited us during the project, they will get a copy. The Library of Birmingham, RF Cosford Museum, all these people will get a copy of this book. And I can tell you, as I show the book to individuals, they're just amazed because it's so impactful.
Finally, what's next for Forgotten Generations? Are there more stories waiting to be told? Are you going to extend it to the Army and also the Navy?
Yes, is really the answer. That I would love to do that because we have served Britain in all those facets of life: the Royal Air Force, the Army, the Royal Navy, and the Merchant Navy. So if we can actually tell stories of all the individual experiences within those worlds, because, as you know, as an ex-service person yourself, we've all got a different story to tell. And individual stories are very impactful once you join the dots, you know. But it's just a matter of getting people to join the dots of their lives, because some people haven't got a clue as to how impactful that will be for the generations of now and the future. And of course, to help to tell the stories of the past generations. None of this should be forgotten. So, it's extremely important to try and get those stories told in similar fashion, if we can, as this exhibition now, or indeed other fashions, but we must be able to tell the story. And of course, we are now taking it the next project because of the success of this exhibition. We're now looking to put up a monument in the National Memorial Arboretum. And the Forgotten Generations represents at least 29 different British, African, and Caribbean countries. All of that's missing from the National Memorial Arboretum, and they can't wait for us to do something up there. So that's our next big project.
I think it's amazing. I think what you're doing as well with the Forgotten Generations is you actually registering public memory. You're actually bringing things in about Black British military history and British military history. And I think also there's something in there for me about racial justice. We're in there. It wasn't always easy, but what we got from the forces will never be matched anywhere. I can say that as a veteran. So I really want to thank you for sharing your insights, Donald, for the incredible work you and the Forgotten Generations team are doing to ensure these stories are never forgotten. We wish you well here from Kirklees Local TV and all the best in the future. And to our audiences, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.